recording right now.
Howard Shapiro.
Yeah.
Just calling to see if you're coming tonight or going to be Zoom. We'll be discussing football.
Okay, Terry, we're all set.
Okay. When I look at the board meeting, I get in board docs and I get join the meeting. Oops.
It's because of the new pro version that I'm using.
Right.
So say join meeting.
Okay.
Then we should be good to go. Does it look normal to you now?
Yeah, it's fine.
All right.
Gotta click got it on the big screen.
Ellie.
So who's all on? It's hard to, the only way you can see is really that panoramic view. It doesn't show all that
Yeah.
well.
The only one on Zoom right now, so. Here comes
Nobody
Jen.
else is talking. Didn't move to Can I not talk last time?
So who's actually in the meeting?
Howard, Chris, David, Laura, Caroline, Brian, Mike, and Eric, and Elliot.
And Jen.
Through them. Hi, Jen.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jen.
We still got a couple minutes.
Show we're recording them.
Yes, we are.
All right, let's get started. We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one
one nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and
and
justice.
justice for all.
All right, let's go straight to the consent agenda. Is there anything specific anyone wants pulled off before I call for a motion? Going once, going twice. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
David Lavarnway seconded. You just didn't hear him.
Okay, sorry about that. Any discussion on any of the items? The only thing I asked for, not to get in the way of this, but I really want the board to have a chance to understand some of these roles under the co-curricular appointments, like, you know, what is a, I don't know, what these, when somebody's a coordinator, when somebody's an advisor, what do they do? And there's some other ones that are, we took off this list to make them separate. Things like chairperson. Oh, no, it's we've got department head. I think in the near future, we need to make sure the board understands what all these positions are, how important they are, how much different they are than their normal, day-to-day job. So anyway, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? All right, very good. Nothing in correspondence, so let's go to the internship program.
Yeah, we're just gonna put the presentation up and then Rick's gonna walk us through it.
Great, so good evening, everyone. So during my presentation, I'll start with where we were in respect to our internship program, where we are now, and our plan for moving forward. You could go to the next slide. So our senior internship is exactly that. It has been and is for seniors only. However, students enrolled in a college bridge program or a BOCE CTI program or work-based program, excuse me, they do not participate in our internship. I'll get into more in detail later, but students are required to contact and pursue a field of interest. They're also required to conduct a research component. That's called the capstone project. That correlates to the internship location. They work with a faculty mentor where they meet weekly. They're running our weekly journal of their experiences. And the internship project begins at the start of the fourth quarter. So to begin their internship process, our students are already shared, or what I already shared, excuse me, they're required to contact and pursue a field of interest. Later in the presentation, you'll see the plan to better assist the students with this process. There are necessary forms that are required for both student and parent signatures. And then throughout the internship, the bullet points that are at the bottom list their requirements. And before I speak about the mentor responsibilities, let me just briefly explain the final presentation. So at that conclusion of their internship, each student is required to do a presentation on their experiences. Presentations themselves are assessed by a team of mentors and senior Explore advisors. These presentations are done in digital format, similar to this presentation. They're typically 15 to 20 minutes in length with additional time for Q&A, and professional dress is required by all of our students. In respect to our mentors, they are our advisors or our faculty members that are paired with these students that really help and guide them through the various phases of this program. Of course, students take the bulk or the primary responsibility, but they are definitely there to, like I said, assist and guide them and assist in the development and the execution of their internship. And they really maintain contact with the site supervisors and really help prepare for their capstone project at the end. And then below are the specific responsibilities that are listed in bullet form for each of those mentors. Our site supervisor responsibilities. So each of our seniors work with a site supervisor that is responsible to meet, interview, supervise, help problem solve, work with their time management skills, And then for the bullet points listed there, they really provide the knowledge around their field. They work with our advisors and program coordinators. And in the end, they assist with the completion of a final evaluation report on each of our students. At the conclusion of my first year as principal, during our last internship before the pandemic, we had conducted our first set of surveys. As a result, and certainly this is a small sample, from our mentors, you'll see our site supervisors, our students and parents. But this is definitely a start, and in my opinion, better to start with something than nothing at all. So we had 10 mentors respond, and in a question that was asked in terms of how they rated the internship, it ranged from 3 to being excellent to 1 being fair and 3 and for good and very good. We had 14 students respond. And again, same question, and some felt it was very excellent, the majority very good, some good, and some fair. We had 13 site supervisors respond. And again, there's a range of the rating in terms of 2 for excellent, 8 very good, 2 for good, and 1 fair. And then we also had parents that responded as well, and you could see those ratings as well. We did ask additional information that's not included in this presentation, but specifically we asked what additional feedback would they like to provide for future versions of our internship. And those answers really range from they or their child had great experiences, that it was a great program and should continue to be part of their senior curriculum, to comments such as it really should not take place during the last semester where seniors are spending their last few months with their classmates and get that time to spend together before they move on to graduation and or other related work. And the difficulties or challenges in securing time with transportation and around their IB classes when we had the IB program. And here you'll see listed it's just a 1-year sample on the internship sites. And then really our plan for moving forward, as with anything else, we're always looking for ways to improve. Again, I won't go through the bullet points, but we did get some additional feedback. And as you know, we have an activity period embedded in our monthly schedules, at least at the middle school and high school. And we could really utilize that time to set up some virtual exploration fields to generate some potential areas of interest, potentially. And then again, this might and should help to provide potential internship sites in advance. And that should really help our students with the process of selecting their internship. And then lastly, I know I have learned it's always great to talk to our students. You're certainly welcome to be part of that process as well. So we invited past board members in person. Obviously, you would have an opportunity to join remotely as well to learn about their internships and ask some questions. I know I did. It was very valuable.
That list of sites, what was I looking at? Are those places that if a kid had an interest in, I don't know, FDR's library, they would reach out and contact them? Or, you know, there was a lot of things there. Is that, have they all made it known that they're interested in hosting interns?
So again, this is really just a 1-year sample from, I believe, the class of 2017, where they did their internships.
All those, I'm confused. I mean, it looked like, if you can go back to that presentation, the next to the last page, or maybe the last page, it looked like there was probably 50 or 60, maybe even more, places to intern. Did we had one in every one of those places, or more than one or more?
I wasn't principal this particular year, but I grabbed the list, and Ashton Morris, who was our co-curricular advisor, gave me this list as just a one-year sample in terms of where these students conducted their internship that particular school year. So this is just a one-year sample. There's other places.
No, I'm amazed if we had a student at every one of those places. I mean, I didn't even think, I wasn't even sure our senior class was that big. I mean, that was a lot of, if you can put that deck back up.
Harry, I think if we understood, if the board understood exactly how they apply this, every senior do an internship program?
So as I said in the beginning.
And how this whole program currently, then we can see, then we can get to, did we, or if you know, did we have a senior in every, let's start at the beginning of the process.
Yeah, so that's what I mentioned in the first slide there, I think, Elliot, if you don't mind going back to the first slide. So it's for every senior, with the exception of if a student is enrolled in a college bridge program or part of the CTI program, but then they do not participate in our internship.
So it's, if the student does not meet that criteria, every other senior will do an internship program.
Correct.
Okay.
Will or can? Or are they
They do.
required?
And we've even had some parents that, because of the individual student and some difficulties they may have in completing an internship outside of the school, we've done things where we've created opportunities for that student to work on the same employability skills, but in a safer environment in the school, where, you know, they didn't have to take transportation somewhere. It was much easier for them to do that. So we definitely differentiate the experience. Another way that it's differentiated is for students taking AP classes. They're not able, they still have the AP exam, so they're not able to start it at the beginning of the fourth quarter. So they actually have a truncated internship that starts. So all the other stuff is happening where they're contacting a site, they're creating that relationship, they're preparing for the internship, and then they actually wait until that first week in May when they're finished with their AP exams or IB exams. And then they've been able to start their internship late. It's shorter because they
In
don't.
May, graduate in
Right,
June.
so they do the 4 weeks, essentially, 4 or 5 weeks instead of doing the full quarter. So it's still exposure, you know. One of the benefits that I think we don't often talk about with the internship program is that experience of, you know, the student, and I remember very vividly a student who, you know, thought they wanted to be a speech pathologist, audiology, go into something related to that. And they went, and I think they were at Sharon Hospital, and they came back after the internship, did a beautiful presentation. It's like, and the most important thing I learned is this is not what I want to do. Right. And like, that's just as valuable for a child's future as, yeah, you know, that affirmative, this is absolutely what I want to do, rather than going into a college program and, you know, starting that. They can even go then as an undecided major and figure out what they'd like to do. So, you know, yes, we did have a student at each of these. It is you know, it's a wide variety and it's a big list because, again, those AP students or IB students started after they finished their exams. So
But some physically on site and some virtually on site?
well, at this time, they were, I mean, as far as I know, they were all on site physically. So, you know, many of our senior students drive, they have their own transportation and we're able to kind of branch out, and some students stayed much more locally because that was what was available to them. But, you know, one of the themes of the internship is employability skills, which really should be transferred. As we look at, you know, trying to get within a field that you are interested in, that's ideal, right? But that's not always available to every student because some things they want to do just aren't in the region. And they may have to travel to find that experience. So I feel like in the virtual world, that actually could even be a benefit, right? Because there is more of an availability for you to reach into a field that we don't have right here in our backyard. So it actually could be a strength for the future to be able to pair them with folks that are not necessarily very local. You know, we've had amazing experiences in those presentations at the end. We had a student who did their internship on a farm and actually brought the digestive tract of an animal and like explained everything that they learned in terms of like they were able to show the whole thing and talk about like birthing calf. You know, things that, hey, listen, that is, if that's what you want to do, that's great experience to have and be able to talk about. I mean, knew so much about it. So if you're going into like an agriculture or, you know, a farming program or field, and that's what you want to do, this particular student was going to Cornell for that. What an amazing experience.
All right, thank you. Harry, you want to continue?
Can we go back to the list? Okay. So, and I think you said, Carolina, we had someone in every one of these. How did they, is this something that people like, you know, Millbrook Physical Therapy, they say, hey, if you guys have any interns interested, or is this, are these just, we try our best to reach out to these?
Yeah, so it's actually, because again, this is about those employability skills of actually picking up the phone, having a professional conversation. So the students are coached in what that should look like, but then they are actually making those connections and those initial contacts to see if they would be accepted. And some of the opportunities are limited depending on the field, like thinking of the medical field, some medical, some like parts of the medical world aren't available to students just because of the nature of HIPAA and that kind of thing. And also the age of the students. If our student's not 18, they may actually have some limitations on what they're able to do. But generally speaking, we do have a list of places that have typically accepted interns. We're just, you know, calling and making that initial contact, explaining the internship program with the support of the program coordinator or a mentor, and being able to secure that placement.
When do we start? I mean, because this was an amazing list. I mean, I didn't realize that we had students at all of these, you know, and I know this is just a one-year sample, but I didn't realize that we had all these students out there. And I'm assuming these are all successful completions. They're not, you know, I started at it's a very hard Swiss company and a day later I decided I quit. These are all successful completions, I assume. Right.
Yeah, correct. So in my time here, Perry, so that's 3 years actually as the principal at the high school. And then unfortunately, we haven't had 3 years of internship since I've been in my current role due to the pandemic. But in Rick's first year, I only know of one scenario that wasn't working well. And after attempts to coach the student and work with the site supervisor, that student was actually pulled back to campus. And they were given an alternative project still within career exploration and ability skills to help them for what's next for them.
So when do we start pulling? Because I'm worried that, you know, given the recent history that we're not going to have this many, or, you know, that people are going to be pulling back these things just to keep, you know, COVID at bay, if you will. When do you guys start calling these people? Because, you know, I think the sooner the better, so that you've got a real idea of what we can offer the kids in the fourth quarter of this coming year.
Yeah, so typically that started in the fall semester. Where there's meetings with the entire senior class, and that's that program coordinator, the senior internship Explore coordinator, and that person will host full senior class meetings where they start speaking about that process even as early as the fall. Fully recognizing that this year, we don't really know what the future holds. I think we're all optimistic and would like it to be as normal as possible and be able to have internships. But we don't know, right? So we will be starting it as if it is available and is going to happen in the fourth quarter. And we will have contingency plans for if it's not possible to have the full internship this year.
Caroline, is there like a minimum number of kids that you have to have do it in order for this program to exist?
Oh, it's actually a requirement for them to get their fourth quarter grades for English and social studies.
Oh, okay. So every kid besides the ones that you mentioned before actually does have to do this? Okay. My other so some of the surveys that were taken, because I know Rick kind of explained that you got some additional information back, like if they answered like fair or poor, do we kind of know why they answered that way? Just to make it, more successful in the future?
No, but that was the additional feedback that I was speaking about in terms
Okay.
of additional comments that they made about what they would like to provide for future versions of the internship.
Okay. That's what I thought. Yeah. Thank you.
Or not,
So you are keeping it at the fourth quarter though, moving forward?
would be, yes.
And then why is it the fourth? It's just easier with the lessons for the year, or I mean,
Well, yeah, and
Okay.
like they have to have a certain amount of content done, like I said before,
Gotcha.
those
okay.
exams, so maybe not perfect, but
Understood.
Rick and Caroline, thank you, Laura, thank you guys for pulling this together because, this has been one of those subjects that's sort of hanging out. Well, the kids really don't go, there's only a couple, well, maybe there's more than a few, I just wanted to make sure that before we even start into the new school year, that we've got a real picture of what this program is about and, what are the options for our students. So that's fantastic. Now, can you, whenever you're ready, can you guys give us an update on, it looks like we've got everybody back from a hiring standpoint, or it looks like we're about half of what we usually have. It would be good to have an update, like, I don't know when that would be, October, November, of the people that stood up and said they'll do this again.
Harry, I just want to interrupt you. It's getting a little bit hard to hear you. You're kind of fading in and out. So I don't know if something happened with your.
All I was saying is I'd like to get an update for the board, probably October and November, to say, here's what we've been able to roust up for the fourth quarter.
yeah, no. We can give updates along the way.
Questions about the internship program? And when the feedback that we've gotten from these the people that are taking in our kids, has it been specific of what they accomplished?
Yes, site supervisor is also, they're sort of signing off on the
Formal evaluation.
formal evaluation of the individual student. And then that can kind of be compared to when the student is doing their final presentation. Also, there's weekly journals that the student and a hours log that the student has to present as well, which is signed off on by the site supervisor.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. One more time, any other questions for the board? For the on this presentation?
Yeah,
I just had a quick, how long has the program been running? How many years?
I can't tell you the exact year because it was prior to me, but it was with Sandy and Trary, who was the principal before me.
It's probably about 8 or 9 years ago. I think it was my first year it started. I'm on a board for 9 years. And I think that's the amount of time. I'm not sure, but it's around 7 to 9.
All right. Anything else?
Well, Perry, like you, I want to echo, I think it's a great program. And I think that we just have to remind people that we have very capable and very quality administrators. That if anybody, community member, student, parent, they should be redirected to the people who are in charge of this program. And if they have questions, concerns, they should really go to the people that are running it and in charge of it every day. That's the advisors. Then it goes from the advisors to Mr. Sipe. And then if there's a problem to Caroline, it should go up that way, like all concerns. But if people, good, bad, and concerns, but I just want to remind everybody that's a good way to go. Thank you guys for what you do. And thank you to the advisors. I think it's a great program.
All right, let's move on to the presentation on the COVID stimulus funds. Just to, make the board aware, I mean, these funds have the potential to really give us a good head start on some projects. So I think one of the things we wanted to do was get this is where we are, this is what it's all about. With that, Laura, is that you or?
So this is a presentation around the stimulus funding that we've been receiving. We've been talking about it for a while. I just want to give you a summary and an overview, sort of like where we are and where we're moving forward. So this money we're scheduled to receive from 2 sources, and it's to address the impact that COVID-19 has had on our students and our school district overall. And we're required to develop plans for each of them, these 2 sources. And part of that requirement is to make sure that we have stakeholders' voices in the planning. So the first source is called the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations, lovingly called CRISA. About $81.81 million has been given to nationwide in education. And for New York State, over $4 billion under this CRISA. And how it's calculated is using the calculations that are used for the Title I Part A. And that's really that comes from the free and reduced funding that we have here. And it's used to give kids a fair and equitable and high quality education. So we provide them with extra support systems to make sure that they're, we call it the achievement gap, that they're moving right along with the rest of their peers. And if they need any extra support, we provide them using this funding. The second source is the American Rescue Plan Act, and it's the ARP. And that's to open our schools safely and make sure that our students also get the support they need to be successful mostly around the schooling loss, and what are some support systems that we can provide them so that we can get them going in social emotionally, academically, developmentally. What do they need to be successful? And this money can be used over the next 3 years. And so here's what we've been scheduled to receive: $1.2 million. CRISA is $377,517. And the American Rescue Plan is $847,849. And 20% of that ARP money has to go specifically to learning loss. So you'll see that's the amount down there. And we're all planning for a safe return. We want all of our students, all of our Blazers back full time. That's what we're planning. If there is a remote move, we'll be looking to the state to make that call for us. We'll of course continue, and it's part of the criteria as well, is that we're continuously monitoring the New York State Department of Health. And we're also reviewing and updating our reentry plan on at least 6 months basis. So if there are immediate changes that have to be made, we will review, we will add, and we'll let the community know as soon as possible. And it will be posted on our website. The timeline we have right now is we've been having multiple conversations. It's just not starting on July 16th, but the district leadership team has been speaking about, what are we going to do with these funds? What's best for our kids? What is the social emotional pieces? What are the academic pieces? We spoke with the administrative team, that's all of our principals, Elliot, Caroline, Victoria, Brian, and myself. Then we were bringing this to the Board of Education. You'll see it on July 20th this evening. To include our stakeholders, we're going to launch a thought exchange immediately after this meeting to gather input from our stakeholders, from our parents and community members, our board members, our staff. And on July 28th, it will close, but during that time, we'll be monitoring this thought exchange as well to inform our plans. What could this money be used for? What's the best use of this money over time? What will have the most benefit and impact on our students and their well-being and their education? Then on August 3rd, that's the board meeting that we'll be bringing some recommendations to the board and discussing your ideas, discussing our ideas, and landing on some direction. The deadline to submit the CRISA is August 15th, and we have yet to receive any kind of guidance of the application process for the ARP. Because we've spoken with the state, specifically the grant department, it's new to them too. They're pushing out guidance. They're pushing timelines and deadlines. At first it was, I think, June 15th and August 1st and August 15th. And they're very real about, we too are learning. Please be patient. And we're just sort of hand in hand in this. So
Is that a 3-year submission you have to send by August 15th?
yeah, it's a plan over time. I was reading though, there will be opportunities for revision. So if we said, oh, we missed something or we want to make a tweak here, we'll have that opportunity as well. And that the ARP, the American Rescue Plan, has to be posted on our website.
We know our maximum, the maximum amount of funding that we can receive. Then the submission is really, here's what we plan to do with it. Do they then review that and approve the actual projects themselves? Or do they just basically say, yeah, we see that you've got, $1.1 million justified, go forth and prosper?
Harry, I'm not sure I understand asking, I'm sorry.
So the submission on this, they basically have told us how much money we can get, the maximum amount. And we have to submit projects to them and say, here's what we plan on doing with that funding. Do they actually review the project for doability and all that good stuff? Or do they just say, yeah, it looks like you've justified all the funds?
Well, there is definitely a rolling approval process, and there's a review and ongoing dialogue. And there'll also be an assessment or a check-in to see where we are in our projects.
Okay.
Was there more you wanted to add?
No, I mean, it's fairly similar to the ESSA Title I process, where we submit sort of the information about how we'd like to spend the money, maybe a briefing on the why or the connection to the purpose of the grant, and then how much money in a particular area. Oftentimes there's affirmations that we have to make that this money will be used to support X, Y, or Z. Like Laura mentioned, 20% of it has to be for that schooling loss, to close any gaps or address any gaps for schooling loss. So a lot of times it's more of the affirmation. How do you plan on spending it? What's the purpose of this program you're looking to bring in, et cetera. And a lot of times there is a dialogue because they want to know more specifics about it before the approval process and then along the way. And
all of these title grants, we upload them into it's called a portal, a NYSED business portal. And so it sort of guides you line by line of how you're using your money, why are you using the money, how much of this money is going to this specific area. And there's ongoing review and conversation. Are there any more questions?
So on the 3rd, you're going to bring your recommendations for using these funds, both the CRISA and ARP.
Just CRISA, because the ARP
Correct, both. Yep.
guidance isn't available yet.
The guidance or the deadline?
Neither right now, so we don't have the guidance from the state on completing the ARP grant.
But ARP, correct.
All right. Can any of that money be used for, if there's something that was impacted because of the pandemic, or because of recent events, I don't even want to say the pandemic, but, our fuel costs went through the roof, or because of pipeline issues. Can the funding be used for that, or we have to show that our fuel costs went up because of COVID?
I couldn't hear all of it.
Harry, you're
Harry
breaking
couldn't
up
hear
a little.
what-
We just-
So
For
those funds be used. Those funds be used to supplement projects. If we had, overages in building costs, we have a project going on, but now because of whatever, COVID and can't get people, it's going to take longer. Or we've got, our fuel costs have gone through the roof and really that's a pipeline thing. Can we use those funds to cover those things? Or does it have to be, I know 20% has to be specific, but does the rest of it have to be specific to something that was caused by COVID?
I don't know about the fuel. Do you know, Brian?
So there's a lot of flexibility around what they call approved activities. We're allowed to use it for a lot of different things. There's great flexibility about that. So we're actually able to go back to March 20th of 2020. And if we wanted to be able to reimburse ourselves for PPE, we would be able to do that. But because we're in a good financial position, we would be thinking probably prospectively about what we would want to be able to do for our students and staff in a post-pandemic world. And so, but to answer your question directly, probably not fuel. But if there were some projects that we wanted to be able to supplement based on cost, we may be able to do that. But we're not bound to that, strictly that. We could be talking about supplies and equipment and most of the approved activities to be able to, and staffing as well. If we thought that we needed to be able to have additional custodians or additional intervention staff to be able to help kids in a post-pandemic world, we'd be able to do that. There are many different things that would be approved. We have amongst the widest ranges of ability right now with this grant than we typically do with grants.
So Brian, so a couple specific examples. So if we decided we had 4 rooms in the middle school that we wanted to put air conditioning in because they've just, they're a mess. Can we use the funds to do something like that? Or does that still have to become a capital project? Or are the funds not even allowed to be, to do that? If we wanted to put a filtration system in the air handling system, or even something as simple as, the materials, I just had windows looked at and windows are going through the roof. Well, that's kind of a stupid thing to say, but windows are, the budget for windows is going way up. Can we cover overages if we have them in projects?
I'll take it first, and I would say probably within the budget narrative, we would want to be able to talk about how we're working on air handling and HVAC systems definitely is a permitted activity. we would be able to talk about airflow, and making sure we have proper airflow. We just have to, be careful because, I'll say only, we only have, we're grateful to have what we have, but we only have 1.2 million. So we just have to think about what that will really be able to buy us. But to get deeper into your question, what we learned from SED in the past 2 weeks is that there isn't necessarily even a full coordinated process between approval of these grants for facilities projects and the communication between them in grants finance and in facilities planning to talk about the approval process from a mechanical and structural standpoint. So how is that approval process going to flow and then be able to use grant money to do it? The only thing that's clear at this point, to my knowledge, is that it's clear that we do not need voter approval for those projects because they would be grant funded projects if that's how the board chose to spend the money.
I mean, where I was headed with it was, we have $100,000 project and $150,000 project. Could you turn, could we add the money that we need in, one of those to say 250 by supplementing it with these funds? And is that even allowed? Forget about whether it's allowed with these funds. Is that allowed?
So that's a really question that we'll have to dig into on because I know of one school district and I asked colleagues and I only know of one local school district and two that may use this funding for facilities projects, and one didn't have it within their budget to be able to do an alternate. And the alternate was for HVAC. So they are potentially seeking approval to be able to do an HVAC project and accept the alternate. And they're just checking to make sure that can be done because that would have surpassed voter approval. But based on what I just said before, it may be true that you don't have to. So that's something that we can find out and dig into a little bit more.
Yeah, it sounds like we've got an opportunity to use this to help us with, a lot of different issues that have come up. That's excellent. So yeah, I mean, keep your eye on those other schools, what they're doing with those funds. Anyway, go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say that I'm thinking as we go, the opening of the windows, and I know a lot of our windows don't have screens, but, is that a whole replacement? Because that, God forbid we had to have windows open next year for some reason, I know they were talking about bees or certain things coming in. So there's probably a whole bunch of those type things that we can think of. That would be awesome if they could use some of the money for that, but that sounds like a pretty big project.
Well, we also talked about proper technology for the grades in the schools and everything else. And, I would assume that even if it's budgeted now, you could take some of that money to pay that, and then you can use that money that was supposed to be that for other projects. I mean, there's ways to kind of move it around, I would think, right?
Yes.
Use the money where they can use it, and then the money that was gonna go to that, you could use for other items.
And that was actually a recommendation from SED.
Right, okay. Just moving the squares around.
So there's no estimate on the, oops, I lost there's no estimate on the guidance for the second wave and the approval date. I mean, we're just saying we're not sure.
No, we have no information right now on the approval process for ARP.
Right.
We just know the amount that we're scheduled to receive, and it's approaching 850,000.
Okay. All right, good. Any other questions? All right. So let's move on to the leadership stuff. I really don't have anything regarding anything new. And even with the Dutchess County School Board, that has suspended it for the summer. So
No, I really don't have anything new at this time, other than to tell the parents that may be watching and community members that may be watching that we're gonna be discussing some, in the next few meetings, we're gonna be, as we prepare to open school, discussing a lot of issues that are of interest to parents and community, from our equity program that was started, it's not a program, study, I guess, and the whole issue surrounding masks right now, and then science. Science, unfortunately, or fortunately, is not an exact thing, and it's like lawyers. They put two lawyers in a room and they can argue two different sides forever. There is some science that talks about masks, and I know that's a main issue, and young children especially, and it's something the parents really need to get involved with, and they ought to come to the board meetings, because these issues are going to directly affect what's going to happen this fall. So I invite parents to get more involved. Thank you.
With something like a mask issue, it's really not going to be up to us, so at the end of the day, right? To a certain
Well,
extent.
you know, the word guidance is very interesting. Guidance is not, quote, a mandate. And, you know, I'm not going to get into politics, but personally, I would like to see control given back to the parents on certain issues, and especially with younger children, there is no vaccine even available, whether you want to take it or not. And there are, quote, science from, quote, reputable colleges and scientific universities that talk about it's not healthy, that the young children, and I'm talking about like be at Elm, would do better not to be blocked with full air. So what I'm saying is the parents need to get involved, need to help direct the board. And if we need to stand up, so, you know, it's time to stand up for your rights and just not be led by, quote, science without being shown science. Thank you.
Laura?
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. Just first as a shout out to the facilities team. As you were walking in, you see a lot of movement happening. It looks chaotic, but it's a very structured and strategic movement of classrooms and painting, and it's happening in all of our buildings. Mike has a report later on. He'll tell you the specifics about all of the moves that he's making with his team. But I wanted to highlight a couple of things that are coming up. The garage down below on the near across from Alden, it's going to have new corrugated siding, a color of siding with some landscape in front to beautify it a little bit. We're also planning some beautification in the front of the district office outside. There'll be some more landscaping there. The facilities committee is meeting in August 10th at 3 o'clock to talk about Elm's playground, the donation that they have acquired. And so we're going to go there planning out the plot of land and what it's going to look like. And we're also going to talk about that gazebo. So we have things in the air and lots of conversation. Oh, and another is a garden right on the other side of in the front of the building that will be coordinated by Alish and 4-H. So there are lots of good things ahead as well. So summer school update, which is taking place in our high school. We have grades 1 through 9 students attending. We have about 52 students total. Grades 1 through 6, they have 3 sessions, reading, writing, and math. The older students, middle school, and our rising 9th graders have 2 sessions, and they're in numeracy and literacy. There's breakfast and lunch that are provided, as well as transportation. And so we just wanted to say thank you to all who are involved in this Summer Scholar, our coordinator, Samantha Holberg, our transportation team, our teachers, our food service, and thank you to the MEF for providing supplies to the program as well. Facilities projects. We recently were approved by New York State Education for our vestibules, our new vestibules in the high school and in Elm. So that's really good news. One thing that the board and we'd like to start thinking about is that when we were told recently by our architects that due to pandemic, their prices have skyrocketed for supplies. So that impacts the scope of the projects. So there are some things we may want to consider, or the board wants to consider. Do we bid the project as it is originally designed and see what we get back? Do we revise the scope of the project? Or do we maybe span it over 2 years? So the architects are available on August 3rd to come and continue that conversation with the board and provide options and scenarios to see where we want to, what's the direction we'd like to go in.
We have not bid this yet at all, either or.
No, over to the architects right now.
I think if we can get, Brian, if you can get some more details on the funding. I mean, if we do have, if these run over because of the pandemic, and we can use some of that funding to, you know, maybe it's not 150, maybe it's 210 or 225 we have to put in. It's important that we know whether or not we can use those projects to do that. I mean, use those funding, not the projects, sorry. Did you guys hear that?
You will. Brian, you'll see as an attachment that for financials, Brian has created a financial information tentative timeline. And Brian, I wonder if you could walk us through it. And it contains also the long-term financial plan.
Sure. So good evening, everybody, again. So we're going to have our concluding procedures for 2021 audit that happen on August 10th through 12th. And a little less to do with the entirety of our financial picture, but I also wanted to share with you a little bit on the timeline that the board does approve the tax warrant. And that always happens on the second board meeting in August. So that'll happen on the same night that you'll authorize our fund balances and your adjustments to the reserves. And that again will be on August 17th. So on September 7th, we're planning on being able to have a long-range financial plan presentation, but that's going to be based on unaudited numbers. Because it won't be the amount of time that it'll take to actually do the plan, coupled with the fact that it will just be true that the audit will be complete. It'll be based on unaudited estimates. To the extent that we're able to wrap up with our auditors on a sooner timeline, and we can include exact numbers, we will. But if not, then it'll be based on unaudited numbers. On September 21st, our auditors will be in-house. There'll be an audit committee meeting, and that's where the audit committee, and for those of you on the audit committee, you're very familiar with this process. You get presented to by Secretary Allen and Churchill. They go through and answer any questions about the audit, but it's actually a statutory requirement that the auditor meet with the audit committee and with the Board of Education, and they present the end of year financials to both entities. So that'll happen on September 21st. And at that meeting, there will be a resolution that usually says something like this. Upon recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and of the Audit Committee, the Board of Education approves the end of the year financials as presented. So that also happens will happen on the 21st. And that will allow us to meet our statutory deadline of October 15th to be able to file all of our auditing reports. And then at the next board meeting immediately after that on October 19th, planning the long-range financial presentation and plan based on the audited numbers.
Any questions?
So Brian, one of the important things about this long-term financial plan is really to understand, you know, the impacts of decisions that we're going, or that we made, or that we're going to make. So is there any chance for us to get, you know, the building condition surveys, the energy audit, some of those things that we know we need this, we haven't spent serious money on the buildings we have in decades. Is there a chance to get some of that feedback so that when you're going through the long-term financial plan with us, you can also take us through, well, if we started a capital project in 2022, that would put us back into this area and we'd be carrying that until then. Some of that other information that, as you're telling us about this financial plan, it's important for us to understand, like, how can we use this to look at other things, especially bigger things that we need to do with the district.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, Perry, and there's actually running in parallel there. So there's a long-range financial plan and there's a long-range facilities plan, and I think you're talking about both. So the
Yes.
long-range facilities plan is a separate process, and that your architect on board and doing a new building condition survey, using community surveys and having the board. So last time we did this, there was like $35 million of work that was identified. And then the prioritized about $10 million worth of work, and that's what had happened. So that's when we went out to voters in the last iteration of capital projects. Beyond the capital outlay exception projects. So really, we're talking about the long-term financial plan really talks about how we've spent our money and how we have earned our money. So the expenditure side and the revenue side, it thinks about and contemplates trends based on the past, and we're going to use 5 years. And talks about basically if we make similar types of decisions, and maybe this gets to where you're at, Perry. What point are we going to be in an issue where our expenditures are going to outrun our revenues, and what are we going to do about it as a result? So you take that information, and that's really what the long-term financial plan, or what any long-term financial plan would contemplate. And the facilities plan is something different, that is a different track, but then it meshed them together when you talk about when is debt falling off, as an example.
Right.
At what point are we losing some debt and bringing on a new project to make sure that we don't have spikes in our levy, and those are the conversations. At what point? Listen, we have over about $6 million that we've saved for a capital project. We don't have to, and arguably we shouldn't wait for the debt to fall off to think about capital projects. But indeed, a 5-year financial plan, a 5-year facilities plan that we would be running in parallel with the financial plan. So
Yeah, No, I was just gonna say, Brian, you're spot on, and that's exactly. I mean, we need this long-term financial plan, and we need you to, really like embed yourself in it, so that you believe in the, hey, 2 years from now, we might have the money right now, but 2 years from now, man, we're gonna be in trouble. So we need to back off. Or on the other side, the facilities plan is going to come together at some point, and then this energy audit thing is going to come together at some point. And to be able to turn to the long-term financial plan and say, okay, so when, what, and how much can we actually do? That's where this thing. So you're spot on. And that's going to be the important part. The important part is not, just to see the numbers in the bar chart and the spreadsheet. It's to be able to use that as a trigger for, hey, look, I realize we have $50 million worth of facility stuff that needs to be done, but we just can't do it because the financial plan says we're going to put ourselves in serious jeopardy. I get nervous when nobody speaks.
We hear.
All right, good. All right, so the numbers, the numbers that on September 7th, I mean, they should be relatively close, right? I mean, enough to give us a good first impression.
That's for sure.
Okay, good.
Well, they'll be very close, and to the point that you could even think about collapsing. They'll be very similar because it'll also be of those 5 years that are going to be talking about trajectory. So
Okay.
It'll be very close.
Good. Any other questions for Brian? I mean, this is, I know this, folks are relatively new to this, but this is like an incredibly important tool for us moving forward, because we know we have investments that are going to be, we're going to have to make. We just don't know when and how much. So, charge on, Brian, charge on. All right. Anything else from anybody on that? All right. Laura, back to you.
Just my last item, and I know the board, but I wanted to make sure that our community knew too, that our district safety plan, which is posted on our website for all to see, it has been reviewed and revised by the safety committee. And so part of the requirements is that it needs to be posted on our website for 30 days for people to review it and ask questions. And if they have questions, they can reach out to Caroline, who will help them in response to their queries. And then after the 30, the public hearing, and that will happen during our August 17th board meeting. And we're also going to seek board approval on that day as well, because we need to have it approved by September 1st. And then if you're wondering about the building safety plans, those are highly confidential and they're spoken about in executive session only. And they are not shared with the public because of the information that they hold within our buildings and our personnel. And so we will be seeking board approval for them during our September 9th board meeting so that they are ready to go by their deadline on October 1st.
Very good.
Well, I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The facilities costs, do we know how bad that's going to be, Laura?
Facilities cost.
Were those two facilities projects where they're telling us that the materials are going up? Because I was actually with a bunch of builders this weekend, and now they're talking about things like lumber coming down, not, of course, never getting back to where they were. Things like lumber coming down, but things like windows are jumping every day. So do we have any sort of idea about that?
I don't have information. I can reach out to our architects, or I can ask them to bring that in meeting as well.
Yeah, I mean, what we need to do on the 3rd is really understand where we are. How bad is it, and we got to look at all of our options. So if we can get maybe we don't, I don't know, I'm guessing, but it would be good when they come in at that I guess it's the next session, to hear as specific as we can get. I know every day is a new journey around with this stuff anymore. Okay.
I heard the same thing, Perry. So that's a little promising. I talked to someone whose husband's a builder, and he said the same thing about the lumber. So fingers crossed. That'd be great.
Yeah. Well, the reason it's happening is because I have to replace a bunch of windows. So I don't need the lumber, but I need the windows, and
Stop telling me.
Anyway, any other comments or questions for Laura?
That one piece, not where only the costs going up, but you're right, that they're going down, and that there were some things that were difficult to get, such as doors, the bulletproof doors, so they may take a
Yeah.
little. They're not as accessible anymore.
All right. All right. Anything else? All right, let's move to financials and warrants. Oops, some reason this is messed up. There we go. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thanks, Chris. Do I have a
Second,
Thanks, Paul. All right, any questions?
5 seconds.
Any comments, questions, concerns? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Oh, it's very silent. Okay. All right. The next is a motion on hiring a, where is it? Somewhere. Hang on a minute. Appointing a living environment teacher. Wilson, did you, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Right. Right, who wants to be the second? Chris and Jennifer, you did it
I'll second.
at the same time. So
All
who
right,
wants-
good. Okay. All right, so you want to just give us a little bit of background on this, Laura?
I just want to be careful of speaking about personnel, so I'll try to give a narrative. Hired a teacher for this position that was qualified to teach the DCC bio class. That person was board appointed and then later resigned. So that's part of it's public knowledge.
Right.
So to search again within the pool, and we identified this teacher, Miss Wilson. She's not qualified for the DCC bio, so we have a dilemma of
She doesn't need the credentials.
the credentials, thank you, not qualified, right, the credentials, thank you. So
Okay, sorry.
who to teach this DCC bio? We have 1 student enrolled at this time.
How many? I missed that.
1.
Okay.
So there are some ideas that we've been exploring. We've been looking internally to see if there's anybody who could do it. We've looked to retirees who could do it. Rick's interview team interviewed somebody who is a DCC adjunct who interviewed for the position. So we've been trying to figure out what's the best direction. And if you have any ideas for this dilemma we're having.
But this is what the part that we're talking about is for 1 student for 1 class at Dutchess Community College. They can,
It's 20 students
21.
who take a
do me a favor, one at a time, because you're cutting the mic in and out.
It's 21 students who are enrolled, planning to take the Dutchess Community IO class that we offer here.
Okay. So what we basically need to do is hire another teacher, like a third of a teacher, sort of.
If we're going to run the Dutchess course, we need someone who is properly credentialed as per Dutchess to be able to teach it.
And we have 21 students.
Correct.
I'm kind of confused. And I don't know how much I can ask or how much I could say. So Wilson is a replacement, but she's not qualified to replace the person she's replacing?
We need to go into executive
Yes, we
session.
do.
Yeah, we better go in. Now,
Yeah.
I have some questions too. I think we should move this to executive
Yeah.
for further discussion.
Well, do we have, hang on a minute. What else, do we have anything else for executive session or should, no, never mind. All right, so let's put this one, we'll table the motion now. And let's move to number 3, the donation from Ken Thompson, which, you know, I just think is fantastic that he would think of us. Anyway, do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Somebody beat me to it.
I did, Paul.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, this is basically the Ken Thompson from Millerton donating pretty much all of the equipment from his, I don't even remember what it was called, but it was in a pretty cool place out in Millerton,
Kids time or something?
something like that, yeah. Any comments? Do we know when we're getting it set up, just as a sort of a side note?
Where?
He said
No, when?
We're going to meet with the facilities committee on August 10th, and Mike Sotero has it all. The plan, the timeline, the ribbon cut to be there. He's got the.
Okay, do we, any other questions or comments, concerns?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's incredible. That's really, really great.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully you're listening, Ken. Thank you very much. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. With appreciation.
Any against? Okay. Donation from the MEF. Do I have a motion?
So
I'll second.
All right. Again, MEF, you know, you can't say enough about what the MEF does for us. Any other questions or comments?
Great big thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against?
Thank you.
Very good. All right, Cheryl, do we have any questions from the audience or from the public?
We do not.
The enrollment report is there for your, you know, amusement, I guess. Just where we are. How is pre-first enrollment going? Is that actually in here?
No,
Not pre-first, pre-K.
that's not. Right now, we have 21.
All right, very good. I was worried, you know, first year and all that. That's excellent. All right. Any other questions about the enrollment report? All right. Facilities report. Mike, you there?
I'm here. So we'll start in June. June, we had, on the school dude, we had 38 high, 175 medium, 4 long-term, and 18 date specific, not including field days and graduations. We did the field days for all 4 schools. We did the New York State lead testing for all 4 buildings. We had to wait until we were over 60%. And once we were in here and we got people moving, I talked to the other districts, so we weren't all doing it at the same time. There was only like a 3-month window to get it done. So we had done ours in June. So that's all done and submitted. We didn't get the results back yet, but it had to be submitted by the end of June. We installed a new split AC unit in the press box. New garbage disposal in the high school kitchen. We ran 300 foot of Cat6 wire for high school graduation up in the press box. We painted in June, we painted room 66, the Dell Lab at Alden. We painted rooms 23 and 28 at the middle school. And we started moving teachers' boxes from building to building that we could in the end of June. Then we set up Elm and Alden for moving up ceremonies. We set up the high school and walked the high school and middle school graduations, which were both up on the field. We drew new office plans for the administrative offices in the middle school. Ordered all the material. We have all the material here. We started scraping and painting the outside of the middle school overhangs. But then we got 3 weeks of rain and we've been painting inside because while we got these classrooms empty, it's easier to paint inside now because we're taking whiteboards down, we're taking blackboards down, we're changing the rooms around, you know, from teacher to teacher, whatever they want. So we're painting rooms now, which I'll get into on my summer update. So we started the outside, the middle of the third level and the second level, and in one, what would you call that? One of these alleyways. In one from the connecting the seventh level, the second level to the third level is done, but we still have to finish the rest of the outside once we get a handle on some of the classrooms. So that's for June, and then just to give you a kind of a summer update, we moved 18 teachers from room to room and floor to floor in the middle school. We started moving, which we're about 90% done now, as of today. The middle school library to room 22 and 24. We moved all the books to bookshelves. We set up the bookshelves in room 22. We got that all done. We moved the music rooms to room 20. Then in the middle school, we've painted rooms 20, 22, 24, 26, 27, 30, 44, and 53 as of yesterday. At Alden, we've painted rooms 80. We've painted 2 gang bathrooms in the 5th grade wing. We painted the kitchen and we painted a small bathroom in room 66. And we painted all the inside classroom door frames at Alden. We started new construction shelves at Elm for the library and moved the library down to its new room. And that should be done, I would say, by next week. And we moved 9 teachers at Elm and 4 teachers at Alden right now in a couple of weeks in July. And that's where we're at up till yesterday.
Hey, Cheryl, can you post that, that presentation, what Mike was just reading, can you post that on or somehow attach it to board docs for us?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I just wanted, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I know you've been busy, but in the future, you know, I know you, in the past, you put we've had access to the report ahead of time.
Right.
In the future, can you make sure it's attached before you?
Well, to be
report?
honest with you, so busy and I've been helping out, moving stuff and doing everything. And I didn't realize there was a board meeting today because I thought that the next board meeting was gonna be like August 3rd for the facilities thing. And
In the future, when things calm
Yeah.
down.
yeah, I mean, this is a really busy month. As
Thank
you
you.
can hear, you know, in 3 weeks in July, I think we got a lot done.
Yeah.
So and I've been hands-on, you know, we've been moving
Oh,
stuff and doing everything.
Great, thank you.
So that's,
Hey, Mike, I don't think I've seen you since. You guys did a phenomenal job with graduation. Not just the one at the high school, but you know, I got to go to the one at Alden and, you know, I mean, it was a much, of course, much smaller thing and, you know, smaller people, but you guys did a great job. And I don't think I've had a chance to tell you that since those things took place.
Jack, one piece, you're hearing Mike say we're moving the library, we're moving classrooms, a lot going on in the middle school. And another part of that piece is that the middle school principal, Steve, has a vision. He wanted to put our 6th graders in one wing and bring the the library and media specialist and her steam room and library closer to that proximity. So it's all down here. It's a lovely space and place that he's created for our 6th graders. And so we took this as an opportunity to create a more centralized office. So in the library, have our supervisor of data analysis, Victoria. We're going to have our deputy superintendent, our director of technology, our CSE chair, and those they're going to be housed there. So we're just across the hallway. So it was a nice move when Caroline and her team came up here, but felt we wanted to be closer together so we have access to each other. And because we just like each other's company and like working with each other, and we think we'll be more efficient and effective that way. So it's very exciting for our students and for our staff members, our administrative team.
All right. Next, I think is Chris on the MEF.
Which
Anything new, Chris?
I mean, I'll take, you know, from what I know, I mean, we kind of take the summer off to a certain extent. But the Taste to Go is a success. They still have bottles of wine, I guess is my only point. So if anybody's interested in wine, they sold them at the farmer's market and they sold quite a bit. So they might be down to like 20 or 30 bottles. So if you're interested, you know, just reach out.
Good.
Can I
Thanks,
just,
Chris.
can we just raise our hand right now, Chris, or, okay.
Yeah, Chris will not deliver it right now, Jen. All right, PTO report?
No PTO.
No PTO.
I mean, there's no PTO. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no, I know.
No, there's nothing new since.
All right.
Yep.
Superintendent mileage report, always a point of interest. Suspension incident report. I don't know if, hopefully you've all had a chance to look at that. I mean, now this is just, well, no, I guess it was through all of June. Good. All right. Any comments on that? All right, request for future agenda items. We've got a few things that have come up, very specifically, COVID stimulus funding, now on August 3rd. The equity presentation, I think some of you may have expected at this meeting. I think this is far too important for us to rush the presentation, rush the data collection. The work that we had going on has been held, so it's not like we're allowing things to happen, or I don't know how you want to describe it, but so that's going to take place on the 3rd. Technology plan, building condition survey, energy audit. I mean, we have a lot of stuff on the 17th. So anyway, and then the financial plan, part 1, part 2. So we've got a lot of things coming up for the next few meetings. Anything that anyone on the board and David and Chris, so this part of the agenda is really, this has been on my mind, and I really would like to have something done about it, or discuss it or review it. So we put it on here first without a date. We put it on here as an item that we want to focus on, and then next we assign an agenda item date to it. So like I said, in the future, if there's something you really want to focus on, if it's something that's time critical, we'll get it on as fast as we can. If it's something that is maybe not a low priority, but not a critical priority, we'll put it on sort of on a meeting where we feel like there's time for us to spend on that item. And then the second part of this one is really, if there's a presentation coming up on August 3rd, and whoever is responsible for that presentation doesn't really understand what the board is asking for, this is a place for that to take place. But as you look at this one, there's nothing open right now. All right, so do I have a motion to go to executive session? Before I take that motion, just remember, when we go to executive session, we may come back to public session to basically do the motions on anything we've decided on in executive session. So with that, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Paul. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I'm doing the, I'm in the new board docs, so I'm doing your vote in board docs. So just bear with me.